To all the non-believers, 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 non-believers. I'm making out.
What's good, y'all? This is Jay Varsity, and this is another episode of NBA Talk. This is episode 138, and as this regular season progresses, and as we reach the final month and the final stretch of the regular season, as we're getting ready for the final standings to see who gets into the postseason, who's gonna be in the play-in tournaments, and all that other madness. Speaking of madness, we're just ending March Madness, but anyway, I'm just gonna go over the standings as where we're standing right now in the regular season, and see where teams have progressed or regressed, and see what we think could be the final standings when the regular season comes to a close. We're gonna start things off with the Eastern Conference, as things are a little interesting because every time a team wins, the whole list gets shaken up. So let's get on with it. Tied for first in the East are the Philadelphia 76ers and the Brooklyn Nets. Both teams recently just took a loss yesterday. Joel Embiid came back in Saturday's game against the Timberwolves, but did not play in the second of back-to-backs against the Grizzlies, in which the 76ers got blown out. And the Brooklyn Nets, they recently took a loss yesterday too to the Chicago Bulls, and James Harden dealing with that hamstring injury. So it's just Kyrie, Blake Griffin, and LaMarcus Aldridge, and the rest of their squad against the Chicago Bulls. Which the Chicago Bulls to me are no pushover. They're not a pushover team. You got Zach LaVine, you got Nikola Vucevic. They have a pretty decent squad coming for the future now. So they got a foundation, like I said in my previous episodes. They have a foundation in Chicago, which is something we haven't seen for years. So yeah, the Brooklyn Nets and the Philadelphia 76ers, they're both tied for first at both records 34-16, and that's just about there, because it's all about who's gonna take that jump to maintain first in the East, because like I said, every time a team wins, the whole standings list just gets shooken up. The Milwaukee Bucks sitting in third. The Milwaukee Bucks have been on a great stretch lately. They've been on a really good stretch, except for that loss to the Clippers last week. They've been on a really good stretch. They've been great defensively. They've been a great three-point unit. Even when Giannis doesn't play, they're pulling out wins. They just gave Drew Holiday a 4-year extension, and to me, that's a great move on their part, because Drew Holiday's a great on-ball defender. He's a great off the dribble shooter, and he can create his own offense when Giannis is not on the floor. So I'm thinking that's a great move from Milwaukee for maintaining a guy like that, because you need that in today's NBA. You can't rely on one superstar to create all the offense. It does not work. It absolutely does not work. And when you have a guy like Giannis, who is your foundation piece, he's the one that dominates in the paint. He's not exactly a guy that's gonna just pull up off the dribble. He's gonna dominate in the paint, and he's gonna create opportunities for others as he gets clogged into the paint. So re-signing a guy like Drew Holiday, it does help relieve that stress of having to say, oh, what if we lose Drew Holiday and we're gonna have to find another guard that's gonna do the exact same thing, because not too many guards do that. There's not a lot of two-way guards that do what Drew Holiday does. So I believe that was a great move by Milwaukee. Milwaukee is sitting in third in the Eastern Conference with a record of 32-17, 2 games behind Brooklyn and Philly. I think this is an easy 3-way race, because Milwaukee, they could easily steal the second seed, and either Brooklyn or Philly can end up in third. So if Milwaukee goes on a stretch, things could get very interesting in the Eastern Conference up there in the top. Sitting at the 4 seed, we got the Atlanta Hawks. Now, I still like this Atlanta Hawks team. At first, when the season had just started, I was maybe overhyping them a little bit, because then they started losing a lot. And then as soon as they changed their coach, they play like a whole different team. They're a lot tougher. They're a lot more physical. They're taking smarter shots. They're moving the ball more. It's not just Trae Young trying to dribble his way out of every situation. I'm really liking the Atlanta Hawks right now. They're playing great team basketball. Trading Rondo was definitely a benefit for them, because be honest to God, the Rajon Rondo on the Hawks just did not fit. Getting Lou Williams, that was a great addition for them when it comes to a scoring punch. The Atlanta Hawks are just a fun team to watch in my book because it's gonna be they're playing almost that Houston Rockets style. Like, you have to outshoot them in order to win. And with that win over Golden State yesterday, it didn't matter what Steph Curry did. He can't outshoot an entire team. And I'll get into the Warriors once I start talking about the Western Conference. Sitting at fifth are my Miami Heat, who are on a 4-game winning streak after beating the Cleveland Cavaliers, I believe, on Friday, if I'm not mistaken. And Victor Oladipo has been playing very nice. He's been a very great fit so far for the Miami Heat. He only put up 6 points in his debut, but I believe he put up 18 to 20. I think he put up 18 in the second game. But yeah, anyway, defensively, I completely forgot about how good Victor Oladipo was on the defensive end. Yes, I'm kind of over exaggerating that one possession that he guarded Steph, because it's not every day that Steph gets guarded like that. Like, it's not every day that you see Steph and Curry struggling to get past the defender. So whenever I see that, it's like I'm a little overjoyed, because even though I like Steph Curry, it's almost something you don't see very often when you see a guy like Stephen Curry, who's such a great ball handler, and he could pull up from anywhere on the floor, that he gets single-handedly shut down on a single possession. So I am overreacting when it comes to that. But Victor Oladipo, he has been a great fit. He's been a great fit so far. He fits right into the Miami Heat culture. He plays hard. He especially on the defensive end. He'll spread the floor. Jimmy Butler has been playing great as well. Duncan Robinson has been on fire with the 3-pointers so far. And this team in general is just getting back into their mojo. And sitting in fifth in the Eastern Conference, at least they're above 500. And I'm just enjoying seeing the Miami Heat so far. I'm hoping that they pull away with a few more wins. That way I'm not seeing them drop all the way to 8th, because, like I said, every time somebody wins or somebody loses, it's the whole standings get shooken up. That's how the Eastern Conference has been all year. Sitting at 6th is the Charlotte Hornets. Now, the Charlotte Hornets lost Gordon. They don't have Gordon Hayward. They don't have Malik Monk, and they don't have LaMelo Ball. So I wouldn't be surprised if we see the Charlotte Hornets fall farther down in the Eastern Conference, because I don't think they're only sitting at 1 game above 500. And when you got teams like the Boston Celtics and the Chicago Bulls, they're going to be making a push. And I wouldn't be surprised if Charlotte just slowly slips out of the way the playoff run, unless they start playing some insanely great basketball, which is starting to be very slim chance. The New York Knicks are sitting at 7th. The New York Knicks, I've also been enjoying watching this year. Now, they've been taking bad losses here and there, but one thing about this New York Knicks team, they're not a pushover team this year. They're not an easy pushover team. Like, you have to literally get physical with the New York Knicks. Tom Thibodeau has done a great job. I can't emphasize that enough about the New York Knicks. The New York Knicks, they've just been a very confident team. Like, I remember Reggie Bullock even said, because I believe Kevin Durant might be coming back tonight, and I believe they said James Harden is going to come back tonight too. So they're saying the potential of a battle of New York, when they say, that they're going to battle the Brooklyn Big Three. He said, and I quote, "We're not worried about a Brooklyn Big Three because we have a Big Five," which, and a lot of people took that out of context. They're saying that they play more team ball than just centered around a star. And the Brooklyn Nets are dealing with a lot of their own controversy, because, Kevin Durant again got caught into social media controversy. But it's like, it's not something that people are going to blow over, even though some of the things that he said I took kind of issue with. But anyway, what happened has happened. But what happened. But yeah, the New York Knicks, they're sitting at a record of 25-25. They are just at 500. And I wouldn't be surprised if the New York Knicks start going up at least into the 6th seed, so that they overtake the Charlotte Hornets. like I said, the Charlotte Hornets are only sitting at one game above 500. And I wouldn't be surprised if teams like the Knicks, the Celtics, or the Bulls start getting up there. The Boston Celtics are sitting at 8th in the Eastern Conference with a record of 25-25. So they're just about the same as the New York Knicks. But the thing with the Boston Celtics is they've just been very inconsistent. And I can't say that enough. They have not been consistent when it comes to their play. They were struggling even against bad teams in this stretch, and it was starting to get very worrisome when it comes to Boston. Now, I'm not saying it's all sunshine and rainbows when it comes to Boston, because they have very little room for error, because they cannot go on a losing streak at this point in the season. They cannot go on a losing streak. Now, they did beat the Charlotte Hornets yesterday, and in dominating fashion, in which they should. But like I said, we've been very shocked with the Boston Celtics, because they have the lack of any improvement in the team, except for inserting Robert Williams as the starting center. That's the only criticism. The only criticism I have is that they did not desperately go out to get a big man, and that they did not emphasize that they need more depth, because Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum and Kemba Walker cannot be your only foundation. They play way too many minutes. Now, getting Evan Fournier, that's a good pickup when I mentioned that at the trade deadline, but it's not what they needed. They did not need another wing that can shoot. They needed a big. They needed a forward. They needed a decent center. That's what they needed. They did not need a guy they did not need another wing that can shoot. Now, we could all rave about Taco Fall and all that, but he's not a guy that's gonna get a lot of playing time. He's not a guy that's gonna get a lot of playing time. He's slow on his feet. He's too tall. He's too tall to play. He's too tall and too slow. He won't be able to keep up with a lot of these players because he's so slow on his feet. Now, will he give you a moment here and there where he makes a bucket and we're all raving about Taco Fall and all that? Yeah, we do that for fun. We do that for fun and everything, but do we think that he's gonna dominate the league? I don't think so. I'm not saying he can't, but I'm saying, like, with how the NBA is today, when you got these quick guards and these quick forwards, they're just gonna blow by Taco Fall every time, any chance they get. It's like they're gonna, in the words of Chris Smoove, they're gonna run whoever offense on Taco Fall. Like, imagine a guy like John Morant, and he's getting guarded at the top of the key by Taco Fall. He's gonna run right. He's gonna just fly by him. So that's what I think when it comes to Taco Fall. And they needed a mobile big. They needed to get a big that could stretch the floor, that could add a scoring punch, but also add defensively and help them with rebounding, because that's where the Boston Celtics really do struggle. But like I said, there's still quite some basketball to come, so I wouldn't be surprised if the Celtics end up in that 6th seed. I wouldn't be surprised if the Celtics and the Knicks end up in that 6th, 7th seed. But I still see the Boston Celtics as somewhat of a first round exit, because if they end up in that 6th seed, they're gonna end up playing the Milwaukee Bucks. And if the Knicks end up in that 7th seed, we're gonna get a battle of New York in the first round. And to me, I think New York City would absolutely love that, because you're gonna have Brooklyn Nets fans and New York Knicks fans basically mixed in the stands between the Barclays Center and Madison Square Garden. I think that would be absolutely lit. I would love to see that. I would love to see that. Because we already seen heated moments between the Nets and the Knicks anyway, especially when it comes to Julius Randle. We know how he feels about the Brooklyn Nets, that they feel like they got robbed in that last game. So that's gonna be fun to watch. The Indiana Pacers are sitting at 9th at 22-26. Caris LeVert is absolutely balling. He is absolutely balling. Now, the Indiana Pacers they've regressed every single year when it comes to since their days with Paul George, and this team is just not the Indiana team that we're all used to. Now, give them time, because I think they can build something around Caris LeVert and Miles Turner. Now, if they could contain Miles Turner, I believe he signed the extension last summer. But Karis LeVert, Malcolm Brogdon, if they just get a few pieces and build a decent bench around that team, I think the Indiana Pacers at least next year and maybe in a couple years can make some noise. I'm not saying championship, but they can make some noise because remember the Eastern Conference. No disrespect, the Eastern Conference is not exactly like a crazy powerhouse conference like the West is. Sitting at 10th is the Chicago Bulls. This is a dark horse team. This is a dark horse team in my opinion. I'm liking the roster of the Chicago Bulls, and I'm saying you cannot sleep on the Chicago Bulls at this point. When you got when you got Kobe White, you got Satoransky, you got Zach LaVine, you got Nikola Vucevic, you got Troy Brown Jr., you have Lauri Markkanen. This is a really, really good team. This could be a really good team within the next year or two. To me, they are literally just they're literally a small forward away from being an elite team in the Eastern Conference. They're a small forward and a decent bench away from being an elite team in the Eastern Conference. Because, like I said, the Eastern Conference is not exactly powerhouse heavy like the Western Conference. But I'm liking the direction the Chicago Bulls are going, and it's always great for basketball when the Lakers, the Knicks, and the Chicago Bulls, when all three of those teams are doing good. So if we could somewhat see the Chicago Bulls pull out in this final stretch and they could somehow sneak their way into the playoffs, I would absolutely love that. I want to see the Chicago Bulls back in the playoffs. I'm still not getting accustomed to not seeing Chicago in the playoffs. We had to get back into those days when D Rose and them boys were in the playoffs every single year. But I want to see Zach LaVine and Nikola Vucevic in the playoffs because I feel like they can give a team problems. And I'm not gonna lie to you, they would give a team like Brooklyn a problem in the terms of Nikola Vucevic. Like him at the center position, which is I think the Brooklyn Nets' weakest position. That's what I say the Brooklyn Nets' weakest position is the center position. So I think Nikola Vucevic would somewhat dominate because Zach LaVine's going to get his buckets. And Kobe White, he's somewhat of an X factor, but he can pull up. And Lauri Markkanen, he's another one. He can pull, and he's very athletic for a guy his size. So, yeah, that's a dark horse team. That's a dark horse team in my book. The Chicago Bulls are a very dark horse team, and I would not be surprised if they snuck into the postseason. The Toronto Raptors sitting at 19-30. We know how their season has been. They're going to go into a rebuild. There's nothing more I can say there. I think their biggest mistake was somewhat not getting Kyle Lowry dealt. I really wish Kyle Lowry would have got dealt to Philly. Like I was really hoping that he would have been able to go home to Philly, but nothing happened with them. So the Washington Wizards just need to wait for next season. Like Russell Westbrook, he's playing good right now, but I know Russell Westbrook is not the type to think about next year. He's always thinking about in the moment, and I think just let the Washington Wizards come back healthy next season. I believe they can make more noise in the Eastern Conference. The Cleveland Cavaliers, we already know the Cleveland Cavaliers have been a mess for how many years, and I think they just need to start over and they just need to get rid of Kevin Love. They need to get rid of Kevin Love some way, somehow, because this man is just making money on a bad team, and I'm not saying Kevin Love desperately needs to get out there because he doesn't seem like he's frustrated or nothing like that. He's just playing ball. He's just balling. He got his ring. He got his ring in 2016, and he just wants the ball. I think he looks like the one star that's completely satisfied with just having one ring, and you can't blame the man for that. But the Cleveland Cavaliers, they just been a mess. So we already know about that. The Cleveland Cavaliers still got a lot of work to do. The Orlando Magic sitting at 14th. I don't even need to mention I don't even think I need to mention anything about the Orlando Magic. They don't even have a roster at this point. Like They barely have a roster. I was surprised that they even pulled away. They even pulled a win away from the Clippers the other day. Oh my God, man! I don't know how the hell they did that, but like I said, Orlando not a great place, not a great organization to be a part of right now because they don't have a foundation, they don't got a plan. I don't think they know what the hell they're doing. And then we got the Detroit Pistons. The Detroit Pistons, they're another team, low key. It's like, man, what happened? It's like, bro, you always think Detroit somewhat got something going, and then they just turn into a whole mess. Like, ever since those days, ever since back after what, 07, when they used to be this powerhouse team in the Eastern Conference, it's like they've regressed farther and farther and farther every single year. And to be last in the Eastern Conference is like, yo, man, something needs to happen to the Detroit Pistons. Like, the Detroit Pistons need to somewhat get back to their old ways, and they need to go back to that grit and grind, all defense kind of team. Because I understand we're in a new era where it's all about the three ball, it's all about offense, it's more offense, less defense. But that's never been Detroit. Detroit has always been that grit and grind factor when it comes to the Eastern Conference. They've always been, let's get defensive players, let's get two-way players. Like, they've always been that underdog team. Hence they're the only championship team I've seen that didn't have a single superstar. That's why I loved that 04 Pistons team. They were the one team that did not have a over-the-top star, and they relied solely on team ball. They relied on team defense and team ball. That's what I loved about that Pistons team. And I can't look at the Detroit Pistons. Like, no disrespect, I start laughing when I see Detroit. No disrespect. Because every time Detroit trades a player, they get traded to a contender and they start balling. KCP goes to the Lakers. The first couple of years, the Lakers are bad. Then LeBron shows up. They don't make the playoffs. Then the very next year, we see Kentavious Caldwell-Pope with a championship ring. We see him with a championship ring. Luke Kennard, Luke Kennard was okay in Detroit, and now he's on the Los Angeles Clippers. He is shooting 51% from the three-point line. Now, granted, he's not getting that many shots, but still, to shoot 51%, that's absolutely insane. That's just absolutely nuts right there. Okay, now I'm done with the Eastern Conference. Now let's head to the West. Oh boy, let's head to the West right here. Sitting at number 1, we got the Utah Jazz at 38-11. I think at this point we need to start making a little bit of expectations for the Utah Jazz. They're sitting with a 4-game lead over the Phoenix Suns, who have second in the Western Conference. I don't believe for one second how the hell Donovan Mitchell is not in the MVP conversation. I believe it's kind of hypocritical how Donovan Mitchell's not in the MVP conversation. Like, we're talking about LeBron, we're talking about Joel Embiid, we're talking about Nikola Jokic, but we're not talking about Donovan Mitchell. How are we not talking about Donovan Mitchell? He is having a career year. He's just absolutely going off. He's having a career year from 3. He's dominating with his scoring. He scores all over the floor. He could kill you from 3, kill you from mid-range, and kill you in the paint. He's decimating everybody. The Utah Jazz are dominating. They're dominating on the defensive end. They're the best 3-point shooting team I've seen so far. They played the Orlando Magic the other day. Now, granted, I said Orlando don't got a roster, but still, they hit 18 threes in the first half. 18 threes. Like, what? The Utah Jazz, they're having an amazing year. Like, they're having a very dominant year. And the fact that Donovan Mitchell is not in the MVP conversation is an absolute joke. The fact that we are talking about James Harden being in the MVP conversation and he plays with guys like Kyrie and Kevin Durant, but we're not talking about Donovan Mitchell. We're not talking about Donovan Mitchell for what? For what reason? I would love to hear the reason why we're not talking about Donovan Mitchell. Why are we not saying that Donovan Mitchell has risen to that superstar level yet? To me, if you've maintained the number 1 seed for this long, because we all kept talking about, oh, watch when the Lakers get healthy. Oh, watch when the Lakers get healthy. They're going to steal the number 1 seed from them. Well, the Lakers are getting riddled with injuries, and yet the Utah Jazz are still sitting up there. And they're sitting comfortably in the number 1 spot right now. They're sitting comfortably in the number 1 spot right now. Because we can't even talk about the Clippers, because the Clippers are sitting 5 games behind them. Number 2, we got the Phoenix Suns, and oh my God, the Phoenix Suns. The Phoenix Suns have been another great surprise when it comes to the NBA right now. Because finally, the people are starting to recognize the game of Devin Booker. They're recognizing Devin Booker's game, and it's so unfortunate how people really thought that Devin Booker was overrated. It's such a shame. Because Devin Booker is one of the greatest scorers I have seen. Every time that I've seen a Phoenix Suns game, Devin Booker just absolutely goes off. He can get his shot anywhere he wants. He could get it from in the post. He could get it from 3. He could get it off the dribble, off a screen. It doesn't matter. Spot up shooting, it does not matter. When you have a guy like Chris Paul, who's a great floor general, he knows where to find you. He makes your game so much easier. Chris Paul changes an organization every time he goes to a team, and it's been proven. I don't care what anybody says. If he don't have a championship ring or nothing, you can't disrespect Chris Paul. He changes an organization every time he goes to a different team. His example. He's on the New Orleans Hornets at the time, and then he gets traded to the Clippers. The Clippers are in the playoffs every single year. Then after he leaves the Clippers and gets traded to the Rockets, his first year he makes it to the Western Conference Finals. They were literally a game away from beating Golden State and going to the NBA Finals. If Chris Paul don't pull his hamstring, I'm telling you, on God, on the hand on the Bible, whatever you believe in, I had the Rockets winning the championship that year. I don't give a damn if Chris Paul don't hurt his hamstring. I'm telling you 100% facts. The Rockets win that series. I don't care. And then he gets traded to OKC. He goes to OKC. OKC had a point percentage of making the playoffs, and Chris Paul took them to the playoffs, and they won 7 games against the Rockets. And it came down to one last bucket. It came to one last bucket in a Game 7. The Houston Rockets were on the skin of their teeth because if Chris Paul would have came up with the biggest playoff upset in the NBA playoffs, if he would have knocked out the Houston Rockets in the first round, that would have been a huge stint on James Harden's legacy. The guy that you got traded beats you in the first round. That would have been the biggest slap in the face. That would have been the biggest slap in the face when it comes to James Harden. But he has absolutely changed this Phoenix Suns team. With the additions of Chris Paul and Jay Crowder, and you get in other key pieces, the Phoenix Suns have been a very tough team. Anytime you play the Phoenix Suns, you better get ready to try to outshoot them, because that's another team you can't outshoot. They're gonna kill you from the perimeter, and Devin Booker can score for anyone on the floor. And finally, people are recognizing Devin Booker, and it's such a damn shame that it took people this long to finally realize it. Sitting at third is the LA Clippers. The LA Clippers they've had a great season when it comes to being one of the best three-point shooting teams in the league, but sometimes you question some of the losses that they take. You question some of the losses, but they've been somewhat playing more consistent this year because, you know, their starters are playing together more often, but they've been riddled with injuries. You know, Serge Ibaka been hurt, Patrick Beverley been hurt. They traded Lou Williams. It's like they're getting somewhat of a rhythm, but right now they're sitting somewhat comfortably in that third spot, because the next team I'm going to talk about, I'm going to be raving about, because they took a bad loss to this team. They took an absolutely bad loss to this team. And with the addition of Rajon Rondo, he's gonna be a dangerous floor general come playoff time. That's a crazy pickup from the Clippers, but it's do or die time for the Clippers this year. You had a big meltdown last year. you cannot afford to have the same mess up this year. You cannot afford this same mess up. I'm sorry. If you mess it up one more time, then I would have to agree with Stephen A. Smith that the whole pickup of Paul George and Kawhi Leonard has been an absolute bust. You cannot tell me that you're going to keep moving forward with the same duo and you failed 2 years in a row. It is championship or bust. That's what I'm saying when it comes to this LA Clipper team. Sitting at 4th is the Denver Nuggets. I cannot tell you how much I love this Denver Nuggets team right now. The pickup of Aaron Gordon has been an absolute success. Aaron Gordon has been an absolute success. What I saw in that game against the Clippers and what blew my damn mind was Reggie Miller. And I quote, he says, I know I've seen Aaron Gordon play before, but I've seen what we could do on the offensive end. But I didn't know Aaron Gordon could play defense because he played his heart out against Kawhi Leonard. He played his heart out against Kawhi Leonard. Even though Kawhi Leonard did get his buckets, because let's remember Kawhi Leonard is a superstar and he knows how to get to his spots no matter what the defensive situation is. He knows how to get to his spots. But Aaron Gordon was playing his heart out on the defensive end. And the reason why he could do that is because he doesn't have to provide so much on the offensive end anymore. He doesn't have to put up 25 and more to try to stay within a game. No, you got a guy like Nikola Jokic. You got guys like Jamal Murray, Will Barton, Michael Porter Jr., Paul Millsap. You got all these guys that could give you buckets. They could give buckets, and you could literally just be slashing to the basket, and you could get easy points. And that's literally what Aaron Gordon was doing. He was literally just slashing, and Nikola Jokic was finding him anywhere that he was slashing on the floor, and he was getting nothing but and ones. I love this Denver Nuggets team, and then Michael Porter Jr. I don't know. Can somebody tell me if Michael Porter Jr. is in the starting lineup yet? Can somebody tell me if he's in the starting lineup yet? Because I'm praying for him to be in the starting lineup. Because whenever Michael Porter Jr. is in the lineup, that's when Denver is the most deadly. That's when they're most deadly because they have shooters all over the floor. And Michael Porter Jr. does not just need to get a 3-ball. He doesn't need just a 3-ball. He could pull up from mid-range. He could go to the paint. He's an okay defender. He's willing to play defense. Everybody talks about how his defense is sus, but he's willing to play defense. He's willing to do it. It's not like you got to force him to do it. He tries to block shots. He tries to steal the ball. He tries to guard on the post. He's trying. He's trying. And Nikola Jokic is a matchup nightmare for any big. I don't care what anybody says. He's a matchup nightmare. And in that game against the Clippers, he's a problem for the Clippers. He really is. Like, the Clippers really have no answer for Nikola Jokic. He always gets a perimeter shot. He dominates them in the mid-range. He could get any board that he wants. It's like, and then you add a guy like Aaron Gordon who's so versatile and so athletic, and he could pull up from 3. He could pull up from mid. And he's so damn quick. Denver has become more dangerous than they were last year. They're officially more dangerous. And when they put Will Barton at the 2 guard, it just makes them more versatile. I just can't say enough how much I like this Denver Nuggets team. Now, sitting at 5th, is the defending champion Los Angeles Lakers. The Los Angeles Lakers, keyword, hang on. 2 keywords, hang on. That's all they can do. That is all they can do is hang on. Because they need to get Andre Drummond. Andre Drummond is reportedly going to come back very soon. But they need to get LeBron and AD back. They need to get LeBron and AD back. That's why I'm saying the key words is hold on. Because you could lose the tough games. You know, you could lose the games against like the top some games against top playoff teams, but you need to somewhat play somewhat consistent ball until LeBron and AD come back, because it's not looking good. You lost Wesley Matthews in the game against the Kings, even though you won that game. You won the game, but you lost very badly to the Clippers the other day. Now, granted, I really did not think that they were gonna beat the Clippers, even though I would have been shocked if they did. But they didn't, and I'm not surprised. And it's just been the theme somewhat this year. Injuries have played a huge part in the Los Angeles Lakers season, and to me, it's just very unfortunate. I'm not going to sit here and make excuses about talking about, that they've had the shortest season and all that. We're gotten past that at this point. Now it's just all about everybody needs to get healthy. Everybody needs to get healthy. It's like this team just needs their two leaders back. They need their two leaders back. Now, I get it. They're being leaders on the bench, but it's not the same than when you have your guys on the floor. Like, they affect them in different ways. They know how to create offense in a different way. Like, LeBron and AD bring a whole new dimension of offense to this Lakers team. They space the floor. They know how to space the floor. They know where to find people. They bring problems to defenses. And then when you add a guy like Andre Drummond, who could get boards, who could literally get 20 boards like it's nothing, the Lakers are going to be a whole nother team once all three of these guys are back. They're going to be a whole nother team when these guys are back. So, to me, that's why I say the key word for the Lakers is hang on. Try to hang on. Don't fall deeper don't fall any deeper in the Western Conference than you already are, because I'm sorry, the number one seed is very looking unrealistic right now. It's looking unrealistic. They're sitting at 31-19, even though they're tied with the Nuggets right now. They're both sitting at 31 wins. You could somewhat say you have a small chance of taking the third seed. That's the best you can do, but you would need LeBron and AD to come back sooner rather than later. And to me, I don't think they're going to rush that. I think they're going to want LeBron and AD to be as healthy as possible and to be 100%. I don't think they're going to do anything out of desperation. Sitting at 6th is the Portland Trailblazers. The Portland Trailblazers, the Portland Trailblazers have had an interesting season. A very interesting season. Damian Lillard has been literally a superhero for this team. And that whole time that CJ McCollum was out, he's held the Portland Trailblazers to 11 games over 500. And it's just another thing that how Damian Lillard is now also being considered for MVP, because you're going to tell me all these years where we recognize Dame as being one of the best guards in the league, and then we're seeing him hit game winners. I think he's hit more game winners this season than any other season. And we're not talking about Damian Lillard being in the MVP conversation just because the Portland Trailblazers are 6th in the West. They have a winning record. They're sitting 6th in the West. They're 11 games over 500. Now, granted, like I said, I've had issues with Portland in the past because I always say that they need a forward. They need a forward, and they need a more reliable big that's going to be around for them, because Yusuf Nurkic is not reliable. He's not reliable in my book. He's always injured he gets injured with something. And Enes Kanter is not bad. He could get you your boards. He'll play defense, but he gets cooked by a lot of bigs. He gets cooked by a lot of bigs, and a lot of teams somewhat try to attack Enes Kanter majority of the time. So yeah, that's just my issue with Portland. To me, Portland they need to find another. I don't know if it's the GM or anything like that, but I just have issues with them at that point. Like, the Portland Trailblazers, they need to look at themselves in the mirror, and they just need to be like, what are we doing wrong? Because we can't. How long do you think that Dame is going to be able to carry your team like this, and he's not going to have expectations? Like, I know Damian Lillard is very loyal, but I would have expectations at this point. If I'm carrying a team this much, I want to be compensated. Like, build a team around me, y'all. Anyway, that's my thing with Portland. The Dallas Mavericks. The Dallas Mavericks, they were having a horrible start. And sitting at 7th in the West at 27-21, and the stretch that Luka Doncic has had. This was the stretch I was expecting somewhat in the beginning of the season. Now, granted, I'm glad that Dallas is even in the playoff picture, but when you have a thing like the play-in tournament, the whole playoffs could get shooken up out of nowhere. You might have really good teams missing the playoffs. But Luka Doncic has been playing out of his damn mind. He's just playing out of his damn mind. Like, Luka Doncic, I will not be surprised if people rank Luka Doncic even higher from the stretch that he's been playing this year. Now, like I said, the Dallas Mavericks, they've been up and down when it comes to their season, but so far from what I've seen, they love picking on the Celtics and they love picking on the Clippers. Cause they pick on the Clippers. I don't care what anybody says. They've been picking on the Clippers. Luka Doncic, whenever he sees certain teams, he just goes off. And anytime it's a national TV game, Luka Doncic goes nuts. And I'm starting to get to a point where his step back is an automatic bucket at this point. I'm saying right here that between James Harden's step back and Luka Doncic's step back, both of those are the most money moves in the NBA right now. Anytime that I see those step backs, especially Luka's, that it just looks like a sidestep. It just looks it looks weird, but you know it's going in. It doesn't matter where he's shooting it from. I always think it's going in. And it's like the Dallas Mavericks, when they just start letting it fly, they let it fly. Like, that's another team that you literally cannot outshoot. They're gonna shoot the hell out of the 3-point line, and they're gonna make a lot of them. They're gonna make a lot of those threes. Like, that's another thing about the Dallas Mavericks. Like, they run another version of the Rockets system, and to me, they just need to fix up. They just need somewhat of a defensive force coming off the bench. And to me, it's like they have the offensive pieces. They just need that defensive enforcer. They still need that defensive enforcer, in my opinion. They still need that. Sitting at 8th is the Memphis Grizzlies. They're sitting at one game above 500, and the Memphis Grizzlies, Ja Morant has been proving himself to be one of the best guards in the league, but the Memphis Grizzlies have had a disappointing year in my book. They're having somewhat of a disappointing year because knowing the Memphis Grizzlies being grit and grind and all that back in those days with Mike Conley, Zach Randolph, and all them boys, it's like you see them now. Yes, they're still fighting. They're still fighting for a playoff spot. Like, we could honestly say that they could sneak their way into the playoffs. But to me, it's just been the lack of consistency. Now, they did blow out the Sixers yesterday, and Ja Morant, like I said, has been playing out of his mind. But it's just been somewhat of a disappointing year. That's just been my opinion. I don't know what else to say about the Memphis Grizzlies. The San Antonio Spurs, to me, have absolutely fallen off. Now, when I see the San Antonio Spurs, and I think Greg Popovich, I think ball movement. I think team ball. I think of, like, San Antonio basketball, using every second of the shot clock to try to drain teams out on the defensive end and getting that great shot. I don't see that in San Antonio at this point. I don't see that in San Antonio at this point. Now, like I said, they could sneak into the playoffs. They're sitting at 9th. They can easily get into the playoffs. They're literally tied with the Memphis Grizzlies. I could be completely wrong, and they could sneak right. They could go right into the playoffs. But like I said, I just can't see Spurs basketball the same way because I'm used to seeing team fundamental basketball. Like whenever you think San Antonio Spurs, they literally played fundamental basketball. It was nothing flashy, and I'm not saying they're playing flashy right now, but when you think Greg Popovich, you're thinking one of the greatest coaches of all time, and you think that his team wouldn't be sitting in ninth in the Western Conference. He's such a great, he has great leadership as a coach that I would want to play hard for Greg Popovich. I know he seems like the type that he will probably yell at you for missing your assignment, but you need somebody like that to get on you so you could be more disciplined with yourself. Sitting at 10th is the Golden State Warriors. Now look. The Golden State Warriors are a mess. The Golden State Warriors are an absolute mess. They are not making the playoffs this year. I know we want to see the Warriors back in the playoffs, and we were dying to see Steph and Clay back, and then that whole injury with Klay Thompson, that was devastating news. And now we're seeing Steph that he's literally having to do a carry job with the Golden State Warriors, and he's not doing so great at it. And granted, who could with the roster that they got right now, but it's just been very hard to see. We're just having fun seeing Steph having this crazy year because he's putting up 36, 37 points, and he's having these crazy games. Well, he'll put up 9 to 10 threes. We're just enjoying the season, but you just can't help to think how far have the mighty have fallen, because we were just talking about Golden State like, what, 2-3 years ago as being one of the best teams in the league. They were one of the most dominant teams in the league. Now, granted, they also had added Kevin Durant, and they were very much a deep team back in 2016. But the Golden State Warriors, I believe those days, their dominating days are over. Their dominating days are over. The times of people fearing the Golden State Warriors is over because they know the system by now. The Warriors still try to play that same system, and now teams have figured out that system, and they don't have the same quality of players like they did in the past. They don't have that quality anymore. And it's somewhat, in a way, it's weird. It's very weird when you see it. And you start to really think, can Steve Kerr really coach? That's I've always been questionable of Steve Kerr as a coach because I really think that Steve Kerr really never had to coach. To me, Mark Jackson built the foundation of the Golden State Warriors, and then they just gave the job to Steve Kerr when he was finished. And to me, I had never really seen Steve Kerr coach. Now, granted, you could say, oh, that's a casual type answer, even though I hate the term casual. It sounds very stupid. Like, the term casual is just very stupid. Just say you don't watch basketball because, like, that's it. Like, to create a term for people who just don't watch basketball, you just sound very dumb. You just sound very dumb. Like, just say, have you watched a basketball game? Like, that's about it. Like obviously you don't watch basketball if you give an incorrect statement about a player. But to me, in my opinion, I've seen a lot of Warriors basketball through the years, and I've never truly believed that Steve Kerr knew how to coach this team. I just believe that this team was just so used to each other, and they knew how to play together that they knew the fundamentals of how to get their offense, and they just needed that oomph on the defensive end. And now those days are just far from it now. The New Orleans Pelicans got a victory over the Houston Rockets yesterday. The whole thing with Lonzo Ball wanted to get traded, and then he's saying that he's happy there. It's the only thing that's been great about the Pelicans is how great Zion's been playing this year. How nobody is talking about Zion Williamson is beyond me. It's beyond me how nobody's talking about Zion Williamson. I don't know how the hell nobody's talking about him, because he's just absolutely killing defenses. He's decimating them. I sincerely don't know. And it just shows you that when you don't have an amazing rookie year, how much they forget about you. Because Zion Williamson has been playing excellent this year. He's been playing excellent. He's decimating defenses. He's being a playmaker. he's being dominant all over the floor. I seriously, I don't know why nobody's talking about Zion Williamson as much as they were when they were getting ready for his rookie season. But it goes to show you. The rest of the West, I'm not even gonna get into. I'm not even gonna get into. The Sacramento Kings are a mess. The Oklahoma City Thunder, we know, are gonna be rebuilding for like the next 20 years. And the Houston Rockets, they're a complete mess because they don't know what the hell they got right now. They just made a whole mess of themselves ever since trading James Harden. And the Minnesota Timberwolves, they're sitting with the worst record in the league at 12-38. Like, I don't think I need to explain anything else. But yeah, that's literally the state of the NBA right now. That's literally where everybody in the NBA is standing right now. And to tell you the truth, things are a lot more shakier in the Eastern Conference than they are in the West. I think the West is more sturdily profound than they are in the East because, like I said, anytime somebody wins or somebody loses in the East, all the standings literally get shooken up. And as we keep going towards the end of this regular season, getting towards playoff time, things are going to be very, very interesting, and the play-in tournament is certainly going to be very fun to watch this year. Anyway, I said everything I needed to say, and if I missed anything, please let me know in the comments section. Like, comment, subscribe, and hit the bell if you like basketball content. Stay safe. This is your boy Jay Varsity, and I'm out. Peace.
We got some non-believers out